Picture this. You're in a car. It's an ordinary drive, music on, mind wandering, and then, in a fraction of a second, everything goes wrong. The car in front stops short. You brake. It's not enough. There's a bang, a jolt, your body throws forward, and your face is heading straight for the windshield. Now here's the question that decides the next moments of your life. What happens when your head hits that glass? Because for the first few decades that cars existed, the answer was horrifying. The windshield would explode into a spray of long, razor-sharp blades. And people didn't just get bruised in crashes, they got sliced, blinded, killed by the very glass meant to protect them from the wind. The thing that fixed it, the invisible layer keeping that glass from turning into knives, right now, in almost every car on Earth, wasn't designed by a safety team. It was discovered by a chemist who dropped something on the floor and at first didn't even care.
Stick with me, because this one's a genuine two-in-one accident. And by the end, you'll understand why the glass in front of your face is quietly one of the most important safety inventions ever made. And why it almost got ignored completely. Let's rewind to Paris, 1903. Our man is a French chemist named Édouard Bénédictus. And Bénédictus is a fascinating character, because he isn't just a scientist. He's also a painter, a composer, a designer, a genuine artist. Keep that in mind, because it turns out to matter. The way he saw the world wasn't purely mechanical. He noticed things. One day, he's up on a ladder in his lab, reaching for supplies. And he knocks a glass flask off a high shelf. It falls, it hits the hard floor. And he hears it shatter. Normal reaction, right? A broken flask, annoying, get the broom. But when Bénédictus looks down, he stops. Because the flask is broken, but it hasn't fallen apart. The glass has cracked into a web of pieces, but every shard is still hanging together, holding the rough shape of the flask. It's shattered, and somehow still whole. Now most people sweep that up and move on with their day. But remember, this is a curious, artistic mind. He can't let it go. He has to know why. So he examines the flask, and he figures out the answer. That particular flask had been used earlier for a chemical solution, a liquid plastic called cellulose nitrate, a kind of collodion. The liquid had long since evaporated, but it had left behind something the eye could barely see. A thin, clear film coating the entire inside of the glass. And that invisible skin of plastic was strong enough to hold all the broken pieces together when the flask hit the floor. Think about how easy that was to miss. His assistant hadn't cleaned the flask properly. A little lab sloppiness. And that leftover film is the whole reason you can survive a car crash today. Objective: reach a flask on a shelf. Result: fumble it and accidentally invent the thing that saves your face. So Bénédictus has this remarkable little discovery in his hands. Glass that breaks without flying apart. And here's the part I did not expect when I dug into this. He does basically nothing with it. He finds it interesting, a neat curiosity, and then he sets it aside. Files it away. Moves on. To him, at that moment, it's just a strange thing that happened one afternoon. He has no reason to think it's important. There's no problem in his life that this solves. The problem was out there in the world. He just hadn't connected the two yet. And this is where the story turns from a lab accident into something that saves millions of lives. Because a little while later, Bénédictus reads a newspaper. In it, there's a report about the early days of the automobile, a brand new, thrilling, dangerous invention. And it describes a car accident. Specifically, it describes a young woman badly injured, cut apart by the shattered glass of her windshield when her car crashed. And in that instant, reading about a stranger's injuries, the memory of that broken flask leaps back into his mind. The flask that shattered but didn't scatter. He makes the connection nobody else had made. What if a windshield could break like that flask? What if, in a crash, the glass could crack, but hold together instead of turning into a spray of blades? And now he's obsessed. The curiosity he'd shrugged off suddenly has a purpose, and it has a face. That injured woman and everyone about to follow her. The story goes that he worked through the entire night, and within about a day he'd produced his first sheet of shatter-resistant glass. His method was elegant and simple. Take 2 sheets of glass and bond them together with a layer of that clear plastic sandwiched in between. 3 layers fused into one. He called it Triplex.
And in 1909 he patented it. He had it. The solution to a problem killing people on the roads. You'd think the car companies would come running. They didn't. Here's the frustrating truth. For years, the auto industry mostly ignored safety glass. Why? Because it cost more. It was that simple, and that grim. Adding a layer of plastic made windshields more expensive to produce, and in the early days, saving money quietly won out over saving faces. So the invention that could stop people being shredded in crashes sat mostly on the shelf. Again. First ignored by its own inventor, now ignored by the industry that needed it most. What finally gave it a chance wasn't the car at all. It was war. When the First World War broke out, safety glass found its first big use somewhere unexpected, in the lenses of soldiers' gas masks. It was perfect for that, a tough, clear material that wouldn't shatter into a soldier's eyes. The war proved the stuff worked, at scale, under the most brutal conditions imaginable. If it could survive a battlefield, it could survive a fender bender. And after that, slowly, the walls came down. Through the 1920s and 30s, safety glass finally became standard in cars. The formula kept improving too. The early plastic tended to yellow with age, so chemists replaced it with better materials, until they landed on the tough, clear plastic layer still used in your windshield today. That same basic idea, glass bonded to plastic so it cracks but holds, is now everywhere. Your car, storefront windows, even the bank teller and bulletproof glass built to stop far worse than a shard. And that layer is doing its job right now, on millions of roads, in complete silence. So the next time you're sitting behind the wheel, take 1 second to actually look at the windshield in front of you. It seems like nothing, just glass. But hidden inside it is a thin, invisible layer of plastic, the descendant of a film left in a dirty flask over 100 years ago. It's there so that if the worst ever happens, that glass cracks into a spiderweb and holds, instead of turning into 1,000 blades pointed at your face. A clumsy moment on a ladder, a flask nobody bothered to clean, a curiosity its own inventor almost threw away, and a newspaper story about a stranger that turned an accident into a shield for the rest of us. The world wasn't built perfectly. Some of its greatest inventions were simply accidentally created.